So here we begin the Kathopanishad, and Kathopanishad again, like every Upanishad, begins with the Shanti Mantra. And the Shanti Mantra, the peace invocation is, you can repeat after me, Om Sahana Vavatu, Om Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Take your books, it's there in English, isn't it?
Yes.
What page is it?
1.
Page 1. Please just see the page.
Before the beginning.
Page 1.
Page 1.
Yeah. Page 1. Page 1, no? Yeah. We'll repeat again. Om, repeat after me. Om Sahana Vavatu,
Om
Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. The prayer in the olden times was made to the Supreme Divinity, and that divinity was given the name Om. So Om Sahana Vavatu means may that divinity protect us both. Who is the both? The teacher and the student. The teacher and the disciple. So may it protect us both. Why it protect us both? What's the point of having, we are both studying here and I die. Then your time is wasted, money is wasted, and you have to go back. This journey is incomplete. What's the point of me coming here and you all go? So protection is not just from death, but protection is from that may we be alert together, may we be healthy together, may we be conscientiously putting efforts together to study the text that is under consideration. Then Sahanau Bhunaktu, may that divine bless us with bliss of knowledge. What is the knowledge? The teacher is saying the same prayers and the student is also saying the same prayer. The teacher is saying, may he bless me with the knowledge so that I can express that which needs to be expressed in the proper manner so that the disciple can understand. And the disciple is saying, please give me the knowledge to understand what the teacher is trying to communicate. See? So it's a integration process. It's a synchronization process. Without this mental synchronization or the spiritual synchronization of the teacher and the disciple, knowledge cannot be transferred. So, third, Saha Viryam Karavavahai. Let us exert together, let us put efforts together. What efforts do you put? What efforts I have to put or a teacher has to put? There is no I here. The teacher has to put the effort of explaining it as simply as possible and in such a manner that the disciple gets inspired. And also at the same time, whatever is being taught, he should be example of what he is teaching. What is the effort that the student has to put? The student's effort is in regards to preparation. That he should be physically, mentally, intellectually be prepared to grasp the subtle truths that are being communicated by the teacher. Without that preparation, to think that a teacher can come and just start blabbering or a student can come and just start understanding. Very rare teachers are such and very rare students are such. We both have to prepare. Student has to do his part and the teacher has to do his part. So that the scheme of thought is presented properly without any ambiguity and the student prepares himself. The preparation on part of the student is purification. Purify the mind, purify the mind, purify the mind. And we talked about it in the introductory lecture. Control the senses, control the mind, come to that pratyahar stage and dedicate that mind to that infinite. Think about that infinite as a God, as Om, as some whatever your concept is, again and again and again, till the mind achieves the ability to think about it without any distractions, continuously. With such a prepared mind, when the student comes to the teacher, without any effort, whatever is being told is understood in the right import. These sound very simple, but the reason that knowledge does not manifest itself and the knowledge which we have intellectually understood but gives way to confusions is because of this lack of preparation. And that preparation is control of senses, control of mind, yes, plus dispassion for the world. That cannot be stressed enough. And then Tejasvinavadhitamastu. So Tejasvina, may what we study be well studied. Again, I have probably covered this point that Tejasvi Navadhitamastu, that Tejasvi means effulgent, that may our intellects be effulgent. That what is an effulgent intellect? What is an illuminating intellect? That which is able to intuit easily. So it is not just logic. Here the heart also has come into play. That with feeling you are understanding. Only when these two come together, when understanding is done with feeling, then intuition is born. It cannot be created, it is born. And in that intuitive frame of, here the word is intellect, intellect, understanding takes place. You can't pinpoint what understanding is, but something has shifted. When we use the words, I think something has shifted within me, isn't it? What has shifted? Something has happened. You know, but you cannot pinpoint it. And then it takes some time for us to reproduce what shift has taken place, isn't it? Usually it takes some time. So here it is being told, Tejasvi Navadhitamastu. So let our intellects be shining, meaning effulgent. From teacher's point of view, intellect has to be effulgent so that the thoughts are presented in a manner that the student can understand. And from the student's point of view, the intellect is effulgent to understand it in the right import, in the right manner. There are different types of students. One student can understand what the teacher is saying. The other understands, sometimes understands, sometimes misunderstands. And the third type of student, he takes the totally opposite meaning of what is being told. So decide which one you are. We want to aspire to be the first one. That before the word of the teacher comes out of the mouth, you know what idea is going to be presented. But that ability to intuit what is going to be said or what is being said through the words utilized by the teacher, it should not lead to, I already know it, and go to sleep. No, it should make you even more inspired that now your mind is synchronized with the teacher's mind. That you are able to catch the thoughts that are going to be presented. It's a higher state of existence. This every student goes through. We also went through. And then you feel, now I can give lectures. No, but jokes apart, but that is a very, now when you are in tune with the teacher in that manner, the knowledge is sahaj. Sahaj means naturally the knowledge comes to you, intuitively. No efforts are required. And ma vid vishavahai, may we not have animosity towards each other, may we not have quarrel with each other. The teacher is saying to the student and the student is saying to the teacher. Both are chanting together. Familiarity breeds content, isn't it? And that's where the problem is. Then we don't even worry and we start arguing. That I think you are wrong. Or that my way is the right way. So beware. And Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om peace, peace, peace. These three pieces are invocations to pacify the three forces that become the source of misery to us. First is the unseen forces in nature which become the sources of misery. The other are seen forces in nature which become the source of misery. Unseen forces of nature, floods, forest fires, people sometimes they get burned or hit by the lightning, isn't it? All those things. And unseen forces, husbands, wives, children, food, people, these are seen forces. And the third is the misery that is born from within. May that also not trouble me, because everyone has enough quota of miseries within themselves. So may that also get pacified. Om, peace, peace, peace. And with this tuning up, we begin the Kathopanishad, the chapter 1, This Kathopanishad is divided into 2 chapters, and these 2 chapters are again divided into 3 sections, 3 sections each. So total 2 chapters with 3 sections each, so total will be 3 plus 3, 6 chapters. 6 sections divided into 2 chapters. So this we will cover in the next 6-7 days. Section 1, Prathamodhyayaha, this is the first chapter. Prathama Valli, this is the first section. And the first section is titled The Story of Nachiketas in the House of Death. So the verse goes, Ushan havai vajashravasah sarva vedasam dadau tasya nachiketa nama putra asa. So, just first reading what the verse means, it says, Ushan havai vajashravasah sarva vedasam dadau. Once desirous of heaven, the son of Vajashravas, Gautama, gave away in a sacrifice all that he possessed. He had a son, Nachiketa by name. Tasya Nachiketa nama putra asa. So he had a son by the name of Nachiketa. Who had a son? The father of Nachiketa is Gautam. Gautam's father is Vajashrava. So the grandfather is Vajashrava, the father is Gautama, and the son of Gautama is Nachiketa, the young fellow. And Ushan also means here being desirous. Everyone is desirous of something or the other in life. Here we are here together, we are desirous of wanting to know the truth. But when this class is over, you will be desirous of having a cup of tea. Then the sun comes out, you will be desirous of basking in the sun. Then the evening will come, you will be desirous of getting into the bed. Isn't it? So desire is there. So these are common desires for the animal and the human kingdom. Nothing big deal about it. So Ushan is he who is desirous, and desirous of what? He was desirous of the heavens. And so the religion, and in this religion the priestly class or the intellectual class or the educated class, they perform the rituals, the sacrifices. Why do they do all this? In every religion, it is to go to the heavens. It is not for realization, it is to go to the heavens, to go into the higher worlds where their desires can be satisfied the moment they think. That is the urge within them. So this Ushan, Havai Vajashravasaha, who was the son of Vajashravas. And who is this Vajashravas? See, in this first verse, the complete ancestry is being given of Nachiketa before they introduce what the story. And the ancestry is that his father, Nachiketa's father, was desirous of heaven. So his another name can be Ushan also. Ushan means desirous, but that can be also the name of his father, Gautama. And his father was Vajashravas. Vajashravas had done enough rituals and the sacrifice called Vajashrava, which was named after his grandfather. So here it is being shown what a great lineage is coming from, that a ritual is named after his grandfather's name. So like here, someone, yesterday I was watching the news, in the news someone got a Victoria Cross, one soldier in Afghanistan. Why? He did not worry about his mates some of his mates had died out of his company, and some were under fire from other posts, and without worrying about his life, he attacked those posts single-handedly and destroyed those machine gun posts. For that act of valor, he got a Victoria Cross. And he who gets a Victoria Cross, every person who passes him, he must salute him. He is only a captain. But if a general comes, a colonel comes, if a major comes, if the chief of the army, air force, navy, they come in front of him, they have to first salute him and then he salutes them. And that's his act has shown him, isn't it? And maybe and sure enough, one day he will also die. And then such people, they will say, prepare a memorial. And that memorial will be Victoria Cross Holders Memorial. And then he already has a son and a daughter. What will that son say? Oh, my father, see, his name is written. For him, this whole memorial is being created. How much pride there is, isn't it? When you belong to that ancestry. Some of you say that you are from the pioneering families of Australia. So that gives you a sense of pride that we made Australia what it is today, isn't it? Similarly here, the act of sacrifice, Vajashrava, is when you are desirous of heaven to gain the merits in this lifetime. How to gain merits? By doing good to others, is it? No, the best way of gaining merits is whatever wealth you have, you must distribute it away before you die, before you get too old. And rest of the period you sit in solitude remembering the divine. So Vajashrava, his grandfather, Nachiketa's grandfather, he had introduced this. And he did this. He says, because I have got this, I am going to give up everything. He gave up his palace, he gave up his clothes, he gave up his gold, and in those times the wealth was mainly cattle. He gave away his cattle and nothing was left. And he attained a higher abode, and since then everyone started saying the sacrifice of Vajashrava. So the father, like the father, so the son. So his son Gautama, he also, he also is a person who has, given up, who has renounced all the desires of the world one by giving it away and distributing it among the fellow beings in the society, and thus he is doing that, he will do that. And this used to be, see, in the olden times, even nowadays, in some places, you will see that the educated class, unlike in Western culture, and nowadays that has penetrated into the Indian culture also, the educated class, the sadhu purushas, the brahmanas means those who were intellectual, those who could understand, those who could discriminate, those who had renounced, those who only thought about betterment of the society. Such people never used to work to earn money. Never. They used to go to a school, they will study, they will educate themselves, and then their whole life will be dedicated to do their practices, but at the same time, whatever they have learnt, how do you learn the best? By teaching, isn't it? So whatever they had learned, they used to open a small ashram or a small school, and they used to go to areas where the education was not there. So they will go there and educate the children in that area, and free of charge. And the affluent people in that society, the warriors, the kings, the business people, they in return for education to their children will remunerate him in whichever manner. in whichever manner. It could be by way of food, it could be by way of money, it could be by way of land, it could be by whatever. But the greatness of this educated teacher is he will accept only something that will last for him 3 days, not more. So he accepts, you don't want to discourage the parents and the society, the people of the society who have the wealth. So he will take, but he said only he will take as much as food and clothes that will last for 3 days. After 3 days you can come again, and if we need, we will decide. So we see here that the society used to look up to these educated people because first thing, they had total dispassion. They are not working for collecting and amassing wealth. And only a person who is dispassionate and is not interested in collecting the wealth can genuinely pass on the knowledge. He will not misinterpret the knowledge. You can easily misinterpret all these techniques that are given in Yoga Sutra, for example, or even here, to achieve success in the world. And that is okay, there is nothing wrong in that, but without compromising the higher goal, isn't it? Otherwise this fellow will do everything. I will teach your son provided you give me 5 sacks of rice. And then I'll take 5 sacks. I know only 1 sack is required for the next 3 days, the other 4 from the back door I'll sell it away and make extra money. People will function like this, but not here. The Vajashrava, the grandfather, he was very righteous. The act, the physical act in life should be only to give, not to collect. Or demand. No demands. And in this way, the first verse tells the lineage of our Nachiketa. Second verse says, Tamha kumaram santam dakshinasu niyamanasu shraddha vivesha somanyata. Tamha kumaram santam dakshinasu niyamanasu. When the presents will be distributed, by whom? By his father, Nachiketa's father. Grandfather has already passed away. He has gone to the heavens. The father is giving the wealth away. Why? He is desiring heaven. He wants to continue the tradition of his father. That father gave away. He also wants to give away. But usually it is, usually it is seen that over the generations, there are 2 ways it can go. Either the thought increases in the traditions increase, or the traditions decrease. In today's society, what do we see? The respect that you people had for your parents, are your children giving the same respect to you? Different. So it's gone down. We talk about pride, we talk about devotion to the nation, we talk about good values. Today's children don't talk about that. That is not something that motivates them nowadays. So we see it is going down. But some places it goes up also. But for that a special being is required. So here we see the father was a great one, and the son, Nachiketa's father, when the presents were being distributed, filial anxiety about the welfare of his father entered the heart of Nachiketa, who was still a boy, and he thought. Anxiety so we'll go into all that. So we have seen that this Nachiketa is not from an uneducated class, he is not from a beggar class, he is not from uncultured class. He belonged, he's got a good culture, he's got good education, he's got good lineage, come from a good stock. We worry about our dog being mated to a good dog from a good stock, isn't it? And the horse is also the same. But with regards to ourselves, anything will do. That's the pathetism of today's society. So he is a child born out of proper intention has to be a well-bred child, has to be a cultured child. Because if the parents have good intentions before conceiving the child, if the parents are going to have a child not out of lust, not out of a mistake, but as an offering to the divine, then the soul that comes in the child is a special one. And our Nachiketa is one of those. And his grandfather was a Vajashrava, meaning the one who has become famous by his distribution of food in charity. That is what the meaning of Vajashrava means. The greatest charity that you can do is not of money, but it is of food. You go to, I don't know if you have been to many places. Have you been apart from Satya Sai Puttaparthi? Even in Puttaparthi, you go, the food is available dirt cheap, isn't it? But in 2007, I went to South India and we took quite a few people. We were about 22 of us, 18 of us. And even, Paul and Keith, and quite a few were there. And they had never experienced what we experienced there. I have, but not them. And we stayed in temples, ashrams, few places, and in hotels in some places. But everywhere we went, we ate food in ashrams or temples. You go to Sringeri, you go to Dharmasthala, we go to Annapurna, the Hornad, we went to Udupi, we went to Gokarna, Shanta Durga temple in Goa. So many places, everywhere we went to the Papa Ramdas ashram, 7-8 places we went out of 17 days. And everywhere, the first question they will ask, have you had food? One place we went, we were tired, the road was bad, and we reached Goa and the temple was there, Shanta. I said, turn the bus here. Swamiji, where you are stopping? Again a temple, let's go, we'll stop somewhere at a hotel to eat food, we are hungry, and all we had was some few soft drinks. And it was hot. I said, no, we'll see the temple, it's on the way. So we went to the beautiful statue, beautiful ambience. And I did my namaskar and everything, prayers and everything, and I was sitting against the pillar. Then suddenly I got up and I came out. When I came out, at the gate of the temple, one man was standing. He says, from where are you coming? I said, we are on a pilgrimage, we are a group of 18. So I asked him, is there any restaurant around here? Because I can't ask anyone just to give me the food, Is there any restaurant around here where we can go and have some vegetarian food? He says, you wait here. Your other friends are also praying. You wait here and let me see what can I do. And it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And he came. He said, if you go in 10 minutes, immediately if you go to the kitchen, the food will be available. They had stopped. They had fed everyone. They were cleaning the dining area. And all of us, now my job was call everyone. And I tell you, out of the whole entire trip, that was the most delicious food. So delicious. Probably we were hungry also, but Food is food. And we had sumptuously, we ate food. And now everyone were ready to sleep in the bus and we went. If you go to Gajanan Maharaj, if you go to Shirdi Sai Maharaj, Shirdi Sai Maharaj also, he used to put the fire, get a big pot and used to cook khichdi. Huh? And then feed everyone. And that khichdi, it's like a risotto. And it will never finish. As many people, 100 people come, enough. If by mistake 100 more come, the rice will not finish inside. It will keep producing. So, keep your stomach full and mind empty. That is their philosophy. So we see that the great sacrifice called Vishwajit, in which the performer has to give away in charity all that he possesses. Vishwajit. Jeet means victory. And victory or conquest or conquering. Vishwa, the world. So how do you become victorious over the world? Not by possessing the world, by giving up the world. How do you become the master of the world? Not by having a notion that I am a product of the world. By coming to this conclusion that I am the master of the world. I am the source of the world. Not the source, the world is the source of me. No. So Vishwajit is which was introduced by his grandfather, that you give away in charity all that you possess. And we see that happening in Mahabharata also. It was a tradition. Even Yudhishthira, Arjuna's eldest brother, he did the yajna, and in that yajna, all the wealth that he had, he made Duryodhan, eventually with whom he fights. He makes him, you are in charge of giving charity. Because he knew Duryodhana loves giving money away, others' money. Not his own. No, his own also. Whenever if someone went to Duryodhana, even though crooked as he was, but if someone really came in need to him, he will not think twice before giving as much as he could to him. That good trait was in him. And that is why people liked him also. So here it is told, Shraddha Vivesha Somanyata, meaning with faith, the Nachiketa, who was still a boy, thought with faith. So what is this faith? Faith is belief in something that we do not know, with the belief that one day we will come to know. That is faith with regards to the reality. Faith is also an ability to intuit, and through that intuition understand that which you did not know before. That is also faith. And everything in life is based on faith. Because you have faith, so you will wake up. Because you have faith, you do your duties. Because you have faith in your driving, you will reach back home or go anywhere. Because you have faith, you are able to help another person. Because you have faith in your abilities, you perform various actions, isn't it? Without faith, life is nothing. So, this Nachiketa, he is, here there is another definition of faith by Sri Shankara, and unswerving faith in the words of the teacher, in the teachings of the scriptures, and in the dictates of oneself. Okay, this is what he had. So, this son, Nachiketa, he is a product of those times, of the cultural times, and in those days, in our scriptures, it is given that we must have faith in 4 things. We have covered this many times, but as many more times, it's not enough. First is faith in God. Because we want to believe and we must believe that there is a higher principle which is governing the entire creation. So we must have faith in that whatever he does right. And that does not mean that only right does not mean that which is conducive to us. Right means even an obstacle can be a right thing if you learn from it. And we'll see it through this story. Second is faith in the teacher. Faith in the scriptures. Second one. Why? Scriptures are the words of God. And scriptures teach us how to live our life, what values to cultivate, what actions to perform, in what manner do we perform, how to become concentrated, how to become focused, how to become purified, what is the goal of life, what is the purpose of life, who are you, everything the scriptures tell us. They are the manual of life. And those are the words of God. So we must have faith in them. The third, we must have faith in the teacher. Why? The teacher is the one who is able to communicate to us the meaning of the scriptures in the manner that we understand. Because sometimes these scriptures are written in a very contradictory language, in a secret language. If you also know E is equal to mc square, you also know gravity, there is an equation for gravity, you also know there is a Pythagoras theorem by which you can calculate some distances, but you need a teacher to unfold that and teach you how to come to the same conclusions that he has come to, isn't it? Same way here also is the teacher who has mastered the scriptures, has understood its import and purport, and is able to communicate that to us in a manner depending on the times that we are in, using the examples that we are in, with proper logic, with inspiration, with the right words, so that we become comfortable and become inspired to study the scriptures again and again and again. Third faith. Fourth faith, what is the last one left?
Faith in ourselves.
Faith in ourselves, yes. And what is that? If you don't have the previous three faiths, the last one is necessary. If you have the last one, the next three will automatically come to you. The teacher may be explaining, we have faith, but do we have faith in the ability to understand what the teacher is telling or the scriptures are speaking? So we must increase that ability. We must become prepared. We must become, we must perfect ourselves. And it is not that one day you have perfected. No, it is a lifetime of effort. Every moment you have to be alert with regards to your perfection, with regards to your preparation, with regards to becoming capable in life. And capability in life is not handed over from generation to generation. No. Money can be handed over. But capability you have to develop conscientiously. Someone cannot come and say, come, I will build your muscles, and touches you and your muscles. No, you have to eat proper food, you have to go to the gym, you have to exercise, then your strength will be built. Same way, in this process of scriptural study also, or anything, in any field, practice, and become capable, more and more. Try to outdo your performance from the previous day, every day. How can I be more than what I was yesterday? Then the capability will increase. I have heard what the teacher has said for so many times, but there must be something more. there must be, if this thought is coming to me, means I'm missing out on something. What he is trying to say. What the words are trying to communicate to me. What is that which is eluding me right now? I have to become. But we don't think like this and become depressed. No. Instead we become inspired that, hey, there is a little bit more to be done with regards to becoming capable. So we keep with inspiration, with a joyous disposition, we keep becoming more and more and more capable in life. And this inner strength, this inner confidence, this inner alertness, when it is invoked, it's on account of faith. If you don't have faith in your own confidence, in your own alertness, in your own ability to understand, in your own ability to reach the destination that you have set for yourself, nobody else can help you. Isn't it? So faith. See? Such a Nachiketa, he when we have such faith, the verse said, Shraddha Vivesha So Manyata. Nachiketa, who was still a boy, and he thought with faith. And what did he? Why did he think in this way? When they say he thought, So Manyata, when the presents were being distributed, the father was distributing the presents because he was doing the Vishwajit sacrifice. He wanted to be the victorious of the world, and for that he had to give away everything that he possessed. The child became anxious with regards to his father's actions. One child told me, Swamiji, one day I went with my mother. Some topic was coming. Okay, then. No, that shopkeeper gave $20 extra and my mom did not return it. She said, they charge us anyway. They are overcharging. They make so much profit. $20 is nothing for them. And saying this, she took it. She did not. Is that right or is that wrong? Children are observing everything. Isn't it? Now, what is the impression that, and this impression will remain with that child for entire life, that in my mom there is a streak of cheating. Isn't it? And sometimes it may happen that he himself may become a cheater. Because it is okay, my mom does it, so I can too. See? But Nachiketa is coming from a stock of righteous people. He knows, he has faith in God, he has faith in the purity of his ancestry, he has faith in the scriptures, he has the faith in the teacher, and in those times we see that, I think that is in the next verse, is it? His father was a teacher also to him. In some places it is like that. So, that we say Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava and Acharya Devo Bhava or Guru Devo Bhava. So, mother is the first teacher, but once the child is 6-7 years old, after that father is the teacher. And then Guru Devo Bhava, the teacher is, the Guru is the teacher. But here, the father and the Guru are one. So the father has correctly understood the import of the scriptures and communicated them to his son. And this son Nachiketa is having anxiety with regards to the acts of his father. Like that example I gave of the child. So, this child, the anxiety of this child is what? That the father, he seems to have not understood and recognized the deeper significance of this sacrifice. He is giving away, but something is wrong, something is amiss in the actions that he is performing. And same thing happens in our in our temples and in our churches. If the people, if the congregation or the devotees of the church, temple, mosque, whatever, if they are not made to understand the right meaning behind the rituals become meaningless and empty, isn't it? They just become mechanical exercise. You do baptism, mechanical. Go water, touch the water, chalo. Get married, I do. Kiss the bride, gone. And then repeat after five times more. Why? No, I divorced that one. Now next. Then divorce that one, then next. No, it's not that. What you see the commitment that you make before you say I do, isn't it? It's a holy commitment. So it was just lip service that you are giving to that. But in the heart, complete appreciation, surrender, understanding to what this holy act of marriage is, that you are getting into, that was not there. When that is the situation, then I do and gone, no understanding. And that is why it's not only in Hinduism, in every religion. Why in Islam so many fanatics are there? Because of this lip service. And some idiots are interpreting it in some other way. But you go to the Sufi people, they are also following Islam. But the interpretation of the same verses is absolutely different. There, instead of the jihad, meaning killing all the infidels, those who do not follow Islam, it is kill the ego to reach the kingdom of heaven. Isn't it? Same is the story in our Hinduism also, and even more confused. At least you have one god or one goal. Here there are multiple gods. And that is not impediment. It is not a, the word? It is not an obstruction to have many gods. We have seen that before in some other context. Every person is unique, every person has a different mindset, every person has a different view of the world, every person expresses differently, and depending upon the variety that is, every human being is a unique one in this creation. So how can it be only one God? Every person can have his own concept of God. Allowed, freedom is there. And that freedom is given to you only by the Sanatana Dharma, which today you call Hindu culture. And that is the Hindu culture that you hear today is a corrupted form of Sanatana Dharma. Sanatana Dharma is not India's or Australia's or only Indian people. Sanatana Dharma is eternal religion which is for the mankind. But it is openly practiced in India. And there are many people from Europe, America, Australia also practicing it. And what does it say? That Where was I? I'm rambling away. The thoughts coming in my head. Where was I?
You're talking about the kid being a bit concerned about his father not being.
So we're talking about rituals that it is they are empty, and therefore today's generation, when they see that you have to make prayer to the God before you eat, you have to offer the food to the God before you eat, that you should do certain practices that in each household, from whatever background you are coming, there are some do's and don'ts, and you don't know why you do it, but you have seen your parents doing it, so you also do it. And these children are superstitious. In religion, there are no superstitions. A simple example, in India, the people, when they eat food, before they eat, they take a little bit of food from all the dishes that are there in the plate and keep it outside the plate. And why you keep it out? Oh, it is for the God we are keeping. Why does God need outside the plate? Why can't he eat inside the plate? And is the God not inside of you? So if you are eating, it is going to the God only. You only say God is inside and outside. I'm not going to follow it. But in the olden times, because of the culture that was and the environment that was, they used to sit on the floor to eat. The cow dung was the mud was the flooring, and ants were in plenty. And if you are eating and the ant comes in because so much food, yahoo, attack, they used to put it outside. All the ants will go to the food that is outside than to your plate. By the time they finish that, you have finished your meal. Smart, isn't it? If you go to India, sometimes you must have seen outside our house also, there are some diagrams drawn on the floor outside the main door. What are that? They used to be made in the rice flour. So why do we make that? Yes, it looks nice, but then everyone comes, tramples it and destroys it, and you spend 10, 15, 20 minutes making it, and then people come without even concern. First few people go around it, but afterwards the children come and destroy the whole design. Now why do you do that? So that all the animals or germs or ants or spiders who are coming inside the house for food, they get food outside the house and from there they return. See? So there were different, I'm just telling you one or two, but there are like this many. But because we do not understand, the parents have not been able to communicate it, or even if parents accepted it out of faith, but the children of today, that's superstition. No. Here, the father has learnt from his father and communicated the scriptures to his son Nachiketa. Having intuited, understood the higher purpose of the scriptures, having that knowledge in his head, he is anxious with regards to the actions of his father. Now, it's not just this much is given. He thought with anxiety, having faith. Having faith in what? Having faith in the scriptures, having faith in the teacher who taught him. So what is the Nachiketas, the boy, he judged rightly the significance of what his father was doing was a bit awry or he has gone amiss somewhere. So, with that, the third verse begins. Pitodaka jagdhatruna dugdha doha nirindriyaha anandanama te lokaha tansa gacchati ta dadata. The son is thinking, he says, these cows have drunk water for the last time, eaten grass for the last time, have yielded all their milk and are barren. Joyless, verily, are the worlds which he attains who gives these dakshina or present in the yajna. He is thinking to himself with anxiety. Why? He understands the correct purport of the scriptures. And in scriptures it is said that you should, when you give charity, you don't give charity that you don't need. Like I was in the ashram here in Melbourne, people were, we have got a big ashram now. My God, 11 rooms in the ashram, and all the junk in their house they are coming and dumping in our ashram. Then after about 2-3 months when I saw, I was tired of putting it out for garbage and myself. I put a stop to it. I said, no more junk. We don't want things that you don't want. If you can give something good. But not that is after use by date. Acha, kya kare? I was going to give it to Salvation Army, but might as well give it. Why you want to give it to ashram? So that I can buy a new one. Why can't you give a new one to the ashram? No. When you give charity, you give the best. When you want to give charity with the corrupt money that you have earned, it will not give you any merit. See? A simple thing, if a person is making food and does not have good thoughts, you cannot digest that food. Isn't it? But that food which has been made with good thoughts, remembering the divine, that food, that person may have forgotten putting salt or sugar, but for the eater, it is very tasty. Why? Because it was done with the right intention. So here Nachiketa is saying, seeing with his eyes that the cows that are being given to the people as charity, they have drunk the last water of their life, they have eaten the last grass of their life, they have given the last milk, meaning they are barren. What is the point of giving barren cows in charity? So the person who is taking it, he is vegetarian. It is, you are giving that person creating a liability for that person, not an asset. Like I gave you the example of ashram. See? So that which you don't want, you want to give. Why? No, so ashram has so many rooms and ashrams always run in charity, so we are doing charity. Very usable things you give. Not that which then I have to spend another $200 to fix the leg of the table and the cloth of the sofa and the microwave. Oh, I get, Swamiji, where is the microwave that I gave you? You gave a broken. No, it was working. Achha? Then lie also on top. So here he is saying that the father is doing the action of charity by giving such dilapidated condition the cows that are in. But that young boy of 9 years, which is Nachiketa, he has correctly understood, having studied the scriptures, that a person who does charity in this manner with the desire of wanting heavens will not get the heaven. You do charity for merit, you will not collect merit. So he is anxious with regards, first as a son, he is anxious about his father, and as a student, a disciple, he is anxious about his teacher. That what he has taught me, he is acting contrary to that, and whatever my father he is doing this so that at the time of death he will go to higher abodes. But with this type of act, he will not go to higher abodes. He might go to hell. And he is concerned now. And he is concerned, but the decorum is there. Nowadays, no decorum between child and parent. Abuse also. And the parents have to just take it. But at that time, language is an art. And he wants to communicate, he can't show it to dad that he knows more. But at the same time, he has to communicate to the dad that what he is doing is wrong. Isn't it? See now the dilemma he is in. But he is a sharp boy. He will come up with some solution. And here, thinking about how he can shift the attention of the father from this wrong act that he is committing and bring about a change in his father's vision. And because father is thinking, must be thinking, what he could be thinking, Arey, I am going away, I am going to the heaven because I am doing charity. But let me keep some good cows and calves for my son, and the rest I will give it to others. So the desire that little bit wealth may remain for the son, that may be his motivating factor, isn't it? We all try to leave a will behind. So he's thinking, maybe that is what is motivating him. So he goes to his father and dad, he says, Sahovacha pitaram tata kasmai mam dasyasiti dvitiyam tam hovacha mrityave tva dadamiti. He said to his father, sire, father, went again and again. Father, to whom will you give me? Once. I said, hey, get away from here, don't trouble me. Can't you see a 9-year-old child, if he is coming and pestering you, that is your reaction. Hey, get away. Can't you see I am busy doing an important job of giving charity? But this fellow, Dvitiyam, Tritiyam, second time again he came. Dad, whom will you give me? Again dad shouted at him and went away. Third time again he came. Whom will you give me? And tam hovacha, then to such a pestering child. We also say, I'll kill you. I'll shoot you. You are in for a solitary confinement now. The child knows. After some time he will go and say, the child, father or mother will forget all the anger, and then everything will be okay. He will get his way. But here he said again and again to the father, he can't say, Dad, you are doing a wrong act. That's not the decorum. That is not the way a disciple can speak to a teacher, neither a child can speak to his parent, or a younger person can speak to an elder person. Cannot. So, how to do it? He says, he comes up with this idea. To whom will you give me, father? To whom will, Daddy, to whom will you give me? Daddy, to whom will you give me? And in that moment of frustration, in that moment of anger, in that moment of attention being deviated from the act that he is performing, in that anger, in that disturbed mind, the enraged father said, unto death I give you. We also say sometimes, isn't it? I wish you were dead. But at the time we said it, we meant it. Because the anger was there, the frustration was there, that child is troubling me. Or because of the child you have so much problems in your life, or vice versa. The children are always thinking, when will the parents die? Why? Then all the property will come to us. They are continuously thinking whether they accept it or not. Every child is thinking, when this old man will go? When this old woman will go? So that is the truth. Accept it, that your children are thinking in that manner. Nothing to hide from it. And make feel, no, my child can never think like that. Acha? Why? He is so righteous, is he? He says, go unto death I give you. So here we see that this Gautama, the father of Nachiketa, he is giving all about to die cows to the people as charity, and as a result, those people, what will be the blessings that they give him? If you give a burden in charity, he comes, Stanton comes. I say, "Arey yaar, I am giving away my property." He says, "Really, Swamiji? I am waiting." And I hand over my property. It is worth 600,000, for example. But the loan is 500,000 still to be paid. Huh? Still 500,000. Now, have I given him a chance to go further in life, or a burden to be drowned in? God knows. So what he came with all inspiration and enthusiasm and expectation, and when he comes to, and I died. And then he goes away and he realizes, oh okay, and then he finds, "Arey yaar, 5,000. Now he can't even return it to me. He's accepted it, he's signed it, he's taken it. Then there will be only bad thoughts about me in his mind, isn't it? It cannot be good ones. Yeah, I thought he was going to give me, he's put me backwards by another 20 years. Now, the next 20 years I have to pay for this. This is the problem. And this is the problem which Nachiketa is seeing, that the actions of his father will not bring him merit, but it will bring, they'll bring no blessings from any of the persons whom he's giving the cows. So, he also wants, as a child, that his father should attain the higher abodes. He should go to heaven. So, keeping that in mind, and the Nachiketa is well aware of the tragedy that the father is creating for himself in the future. And what is the rule here? As you sow, so you reap. Your actions determine what life you will gain in the next life, isn't it? So if you have done good actions in this lifetime, you will get good womb in the next lifetime. If you have done bad actions in this lifetime, you will get lower wombs in the next lifetime, as we saw in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So here he is performing such actions. So he says, "Father, to whom will you give me?" No father has any right to give his son away to death, but out of frustration he said it. Nachiketa also knows that the father did not mean it. No father will mean it. And that much, that feeling every child will have. And that is why we feel hurt when father says, "I wish you were dead." So when you hear from your parent something like that, you get shocked that how can my parents wish that I was dead? I wish you were never born, only a problem to me. Then what type of mother is she? What type of father is she that they don't want me? Then why did they have me? I did not choose. They only, and all this type of thinking is going on. So here, Nachiketa is wiser than his father. He is understanding the purpose of charity better than his father is. And he is understanding that his father, what he has said it out of frustration. True. But in those times, such rare students who say that whatever is coming for a reason. So if my father has told that go, I give you unto death, there must be a meaning behind it. There must be a higher purpose behind it. He must be knowing that I have the capacity and the ability or the capability to go to death. There must be a reason why the Lord Death made my father speak these words to me. There must be something behind it. Otherwise, just like that, my father would never speak like this. He has never spoken like this before. See the thinking. Instead of saying, Daddy, I don't want to go to death. Please take your words back. Or fighting, how can you tell like that to me? And creating a tantrum afterwards, going to mom. No. No tantrum. Instead, contemplation. That if my father and also at the same time my teacher has told me to go to the death, there must be a reason. So instead of succumbing to what the life has presented to him at that moment, Nachiketa instead is taking that challenge and trying to meet that challenge eye to eye, without succumbing, without going into depression, without getting defeated by the situation that life has presented itself. Instead, he is finding, how can I meet with that challenge? How can I grow with that challenge? He has got no idea in his life how to meet death, how to go to death. He doesn't know. But if my father has said it, my teacher has said it, there must be a way. This is the psychological building up. How we gain strength, between the 2 years. And he's not going to commit suicide to go and meet death. So he realizes that the father has said it, and as a result of this statement from his father, the son Nachiketa, in the 5th verse, the thinking going on inside the mind of Nachiketa is told in the 5th verse. That Bahunamemi prathamo, bahunamemi madhyamaha, kim swid yamasya kartavyam, yanmayadya karishyati. Thinking that what is the purpose that the father told me that go unto death, he is thinking that here it says, among many I am the first, at times I am a mediocre, meaning I was never a third rate. What is the undertaking of Yama, the Lord of Death, that is being achieved through me, who is thus given to Yama? He says, I am among many seekers, among many disciples, and his father was a teacher, at the same time a father. So he, as a teacher, he had many disciples, and it was not a question of favoritism. But Nachiketa knows among many in his class, or in the society, he was one of the best students. And who is the best student? We said before in the peace invocation, who is the best student? Who understands correctly what the teacher is saying, who intuits the hidden meaning behind the words that the teacher is communicating. Because we are here not to work out what charity to do and what death is and etc. We are here to know the self, understand. And self cannot be known through words. Just like self cannot be known through words, but the only way of communication is words. Nobody has experienced death. Have you experienced death? And yet we use the word death. So he is thinking that he started pondering over the circumstance that he found himself in. And he said, among many, I am the best student. And sometimes being a son of the father, because that teacher is also the father, sometimes I must have become the second grade student. Which means who is the second grade student? As we said, who needs to be reminded again and again what is to be done. The best student intuits the needs of the teacher and serves consistently without a break all the time. The mediocre student, he is inspired, but he needs a push. He forgets every now and then what needs to be done. So the teacher has to, hey, you. So, for example, someone has brought this glass of water. Someone has already thought that I might need water, isn't it? See? So this is the sign of a best student. I don't know who it was, don't say. And this act does not help me. It does not help the teacher. It helps the student to become in tune with the teacher, in tune with the knowledge. If you are in tune with the teacher, automatically you are in tune with the knowledge that is going to pour out from the teacher. See? So in this manner, he is thinking without thinking negatively about his father. He is seeing an opportunity in that adverse circumstance, and his mind is not getting confused and clouded, and instead he is thinking like a matured person and not creating any pranks with regards to he's not becoming emotional. How can you send me to the death? Don't you love me, Daddy? He is not showing that type of action also. And instead, he is not a person, oh, Dad has told me to go to death, maybe he is going to come and kill me. Let me run away from here first. He is not even doing that. He is not running away from home. Oh, Daddy does not love me, Daddy does not love me, and run away into the fields and I am not going to come back, I am not going to eat, I am not going to talk. Nothing like this. This is how we see our children, isn't it? Instead, his thinking is very mature. He says, I am among many the best student, and sometimes I have been a mediocre student when I have been lazy, when I have been tired, when I have forgotten sometimes, but that is very rare. Most of the times I have been the best. But I have never been the worst student. Worst student means even after telling, they don't do that. Even after explaining, they don't understand. So he says, I have never been the worst type of student. Then what is the purpose that the Lord of Death is trying to achieve by making my father say that unto death I give you? So by this this communication, and if I do reach the death somehow, what is going to be achieved out of this? I am not clear about it. So thinking in this manner, here it says, what is the undertaking of Yama that is being achieved through me, who is thus given to Yama? So what is he trying to achieve out of me? And in this manner, when he starts thinking, see, in those times, this shows the way Nachiketa is thinking, a matured thinking. It is not a reactionary thinking. It is a matured. He is responding to the situation. He is not reacting to the situation that he finds himself in. He is not blaming his father. He is not blaming the society. He is responding to the situation that he finds himself in. And how is he responding? In this manner, in this internal dialogue that is going on. He is not speaking these words to his teacher or his father or his friends. Only internally. This dialogue is going on. Here we see that, and because of the culture that he is born, because of the times that he is born, he has explicit faith. Explicit or implicit? Which one should I say? Implicit faith in the words of his father. That if my father has said, see, this is another way of looking at it. If my father has said that go, I give you unto death, he must know that I have the ability to go to death. Will we think like this? No, we'll create a drama there. He must be knowing. That's why. And no word from the mouth of my father will come just like that. There's always a meaning behind it. At least this is what our culture, because everyone is doing their duties, everyone, when the righteousness is the foundation, then the child does not suspect the actions of his parents, of his elders, of his teacher, does not suspect. He takes them as at face value. So he does not suspect that my father is just telling it like that. No. Yes, one part of his mind is saying it, he must have said it in jest. But now when he starts contemplating, he is saying, no, no words of my father or my teacher can be come out of their mouth just like that. There must be a reason. And in thinking in this manner, when we see, Swami Chinmayananda was there, or Buddha was there, or Satya Sai Baba is there, or Shirdi Sai Baba is there, or other Mahatmas are there, every one of them, if they say, see, look, your eyes are okay now, a blind man starts seeing. If Sai Baba says, Acha, you do this, and after 2 days you will start walking. It has to happen. Finished. You cannot cancel it. Chinmayananji was giving lectures in Siddhabadi in Himalayas. There is an ashram there. And everyone said, Swamiji, inside the room it is hot, but outside we cannot have lectures. And he said, no, we'll have lectures outside. But Swamiji, it's going to rain, all the clouds are coming. And it is raining. He says, Acha, it is raining? No, but I feel like taking, not feel like, but I have decided that I want to take lectures outside. Then he says, Swamiji, and sometimes these Mahatmas, they do that for the joy of it. He says, Acha, oh, my dear wind god, please take these clouds in another direction so that we can have lecture here. Within 2 minutes, the sky was clear above the ashram. Rain is happening everywhere, but above the ashram, clear sky. Lecture was done. After the lecture, clouds came again. The reason I am telling you this is when a master says something, or when a purified soul says something, it happens. Because that in that person there is no doubt. That person has got no individual mind. A person of that stature, a guru, a realized master, a mahatma, a saint or a sage, he has done whatever is required to be done, and his mind has merged into the total mind. And when the words from the total mind, by the will of the total mind, when the words fall out of the mouth, the power behind that word is of totality, not of individuality. It seems to be coming out of a single mouth, but the power behind it is the totality. And therefore, that word must manifest. See? And this is the status that Nachiketa has given to his father. He is my guru, he is my father. And whatever he has said must come true. So he must be knowing. I have not discovered the way yet, but there must be a way. And in this way, he started thinking and contemplating. When you think in this manner, then alone the grace of the teacher is available. Even in the scolding of a teacher, there is grace. Even in the praise, the teacher is praising you, yes, there is grace. In a hug, there is praise. But only when the teacher says or does things that are conducive to you, then the teacher is a teacher and he is a nice teacher. No. When you are able to accept the teacher, even when he scolds you and your love for him does not become less. Do you feel when you go with the letter to Baba and he doesn't take your letter? Do you feel anything less about him? No. At that time you change your thinking. You think, oh, there are many other people who need to give their letters. Maybe their letters are more important than mine, isn't it? This is the type of thought comes. When first time I went to Satya Sai Baba, I was sitting there. For 4 days I was sitting, wanting darshan. I said, Baba, please give me darshan. And last day I was going to go, only 1 hour left, and I was going to get up and go after it. And I was sitting there and I said, Baba, every day he used to look at me and then walk away. And he was standing there. And he looked at me. I said, let me see what magic you do today. Every day you are giving me, little bit of your graceful look and then going away. And I understand that there are thousands of people. That day there were 7,000-8,000 people there. And I am only just one of them. And I have come after studying scriptures for 2 years. And here I am hankering to have a special darshan from you. I want to touch your feet. But how inconsiderate of me that having studied the scriptures, I am still demanding to have special, touch or preference. And here so many people are there who have not studied the scriptures. They need you more than I do. So please take care of them. And I closed my eyes and sat in meditation. See? And then I am in meditation, but the world around me, like the bee, is going, and suddenly I find myself, I said, what is going on here? And I just did that and I opened my eyes, I saw Baba was standing in front of me. And not knowing what to do, the push came from within, from behind, and I was pushed onto his feet. So he did grace, but if he had not graced me with the touch of his feet, my love for him would not have become less. But the way I just thought about him, that there are other people who need more of you. Nah, I have been coming for 4 days, I spent so much money and you don't even give me a darshan. What type of person you are? We never think in this manner, isn't it? But if I become familiar to Baba, I become very close to him, going around him, talking to him, arm in arm, driving him. And then, if he doesn't do what I desire, isn't it? Think about it. So, in a well-developed culture, this feeling of children towards the parents, towards the teacher, towards the elders of the society must be there, that what they are saying is true. But for that purpose, the elders also must do their part. They must also live a righteous life. Nachiketa has never found any incidents till now where he would have become anxious with the actions of his father. This is the first time it is happening. And he is doing it because this type of situation never arose for his father also, where he had to give everything away that he had. And when he had to give everything away that he had, then the thought, I should leave something for my son also. So he did not live up to the ideals, but his son is living up to the ideals. And he tried to remind. So here we see that if we have to profit, if we have to gain from the relationship with a master or a teacher, we must accept, we must surrender, we must take their word as the final word. Because if we don't take their word as the final word, ego has come up. And no teacher worth his salt will ever try to take advantage of the disciple. Never. The only purpose that teacher has come or master has come into your life, or you have come across a saint or a sage, is for your spiritual unfoldment. Now it is up to each student, disciple, how he interprets that is happening in his life with respect to his teacher, with respect to his master, with respect to his parent, and make it interpret it in such a way within his or her mind that he grows more spiritually. Because nothing happens just like that. Nothing happens as a coincidence. If you are alert. So here we see that Nachiketa, who is following the scriptures and having known that the father did not mean the words that he spoke, and yet is accepting that the father has said those words, then what will be the work of the Lord of Death, which he had to do by or through me, by making these words come through my father's mouth. So his thinking is very, very evolved thinking. And in this, and when you see this, that what will be the work of the Lord of Death, which he had to do through me or by me, means he does not know what the future holds, correct? He wants to see what could be the reason. We always want to do something by knowing what the future holds for us, isn't it? But here, he's totally nonplussed. We don't know. He doesn't know. He wants a peep into the future, but he is not getting one. And as a result, he stops. For that moment, he says that whatever my Guru's words have been said, or my father's words have come out, they cannot be in vain. They have to have they are the truth. And thinking in this manner, he goes on to the sixth verse now. Anupashya yatha purve pratipashya tatha pare sasyameva martya pachyate sasyameva jayate punaha. He says, remember how your forefathers acted, consider also how others now act. Like corn decays the mortal, and like the corn is born again. This thought we will see in the next class. Yes. Contemplate on what we talked about in this class. The mental makeup that was presented to you just now is a very, very necessary prerequisite in order for the knowledge to go deep within you and create an impression which cannot be erased by the temptations of the world. See? Because temptations of the world are continuously knocking, incessantly. Now the coffee temptation will come or the tea temptation will come. But in spite of the world stimuli knocking at your doors, in the background is the thought of the truth there or not? That happens by cultivating such a mind. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Hari Om.